Hi there, a long time no see. Um, it's only now that I'm looking at my camera that I realize I do look quite the mess. We are now 2 weeks post-op, and I thought I'd pop on and give you an update. My dad, whose gear is behind me, has been staying with me for this month, but he's gone to London for the day. Thought, oh, I'll just pop on and do, a quick update. But honestly, it's so hard to talk, and yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. One thing you might notice immediately, well, a couple things you might notice immediately. First of all, I have this lovely condom wrapper. I'm not going to turn too far that way because you can see the carnage that is the wound. Yeah, I have a compression garment on, straps at the back and here and in the back of my neck. And basically, it just tries to keep down the swelling, hold the swelling in. It hasn't done a very good job with that. Honestly, I think it's more hassle than it's worth. It feels very uncomfortable. But most of the swelling has gone down now. The reason this is so gunky is that a lot of the swelling, what you call serous fluid, has been flowing out. So that's why I'm starting to look a bit more symmetrical, which is crazy. I haven't looked symmetrical in years. However, the other thing that you might notice is that I don't have full function over my face. So I currently, if I try and smile, if I try and lift my eyebrow, you'll notice that I can't function this side of my face. It was somewhat anticipated that when I went in for the surgery, either there could be permanent or temporary damage. That remains to be seen. We don't know whether it's temporary or permanent at this stage. I do think I've regained a little bit of control. You can see I can tuck my chin a little bit there, so I've regained a little bit of control, which means that possibly this side of my face, at least the lip function, might come back in full capacity, which would be lovely. It's a little bit of a annoying. It'd be really nice to be able to smile. It'd be really nice to be able to hold in liquids. It'd be nice to be able to talk without a lisp. It is a bit tiring to talk at the moment because I don't have full function. The other issue is the eyebrow, obviously. If I take off my glasses, you can see this swelled up hugely and was much more bruised than it was before, but it is causing a bit of a problem. If I could lift my eye up a little more, you could see my eye a little better. Apologies, I'm looking at the camera while I do this. But it struggles a bit. It struggles a bit. This is the one that they were most concerned about, this facial nerve here. Unfortunately, it has not come back in any capacity. It's only been 2 weeks. Let's just preface this by saying it can take 3 to 6 months for full function to come back. At the moment, I have no function whatsoever, apart from being able to close my eye, which is lovely. The other concern was that I wouldn't be able to close my eye anymore, which can cause a lot of problems in terms of needing to use eye drops and lubrication, all of that. But I can close my eye, so I'm very pleased with that. It's just that I don't have any function here. So we'll see what happens. They did say when I came out of the surgery that it's possible it was cut. Nerve branches can reform, so it's a possibility that I can regrow if it has been cut, or maybe it hasn't been cut and it just needs some time after such a traumatic experience. It needs some time to rebuild. Anyway, since I've addressed the most obvious things, I thought I'd go back and I'd just sort of explain what happened with the surgery, how it's been going with recovery, all of that, because a lot of it was unexpected. And also not pleasant. Let me just tell you that much. It hasn't been fun. And I do think that my recovery is going to take longer than I had hoped for. I think I've been a bit ambitious with my recovery timelines, to be fair. But I do think it's going to take a lot longer than even the doctors anticipated. So what happened? I went in for surgery. First of all, if you're new to this video, probably should have prefaced with this 5 minutes ago, but I have Mosaic neurofibromatosis that results in a plexiform neurofibroma or tumour that grows in this left cheek of my face. It goes from my temple all the way down and around and a little bit into my nose. The doctors for 3 years now, I've been waiting for a surgery that would do debulking. Unfortunately, because of the type of tumour and the complexity of it, it is impossible to remove every bit of plexiform neurofibroma from my cheek. We know that from the outset. That's just how it is. It is not cancerous. It has a 10% chance of becoming cancerous. If it did, I don't want to think about it because it is quite lethal, but it's a 10% chance. There's a 90% chance that I'm going to be perfectly fine and it never turns into cancer. Let's just think about it that way. So for 3 years, I've been waiting for this surgery to happen. Finally, I got a date set for the 14th of August, and the reason it took so long is because they had to get 2 specialists from across London to match up diaries for the day, because not only did it require someone who was experienced in plastic surgery, because obviously there's going to be a lot of loose skin after a massive tumour is removed. They have to pull up the skin. That doctor was also in charge of removing the majority of the tumour because they have a practice that is quite well experienced in removing these types of tumours. So we had that doctor who was taking care of the majority of it, but because it also interacts with various functions of my face, so the nerve, but also any glands or any other kind of functional things within my face. They also brought in an ENT who was in charge of monitoring, helping with the facial nerve, all of that, but also removing my saliva gland, my parotid gland, from this side of my face, because basically parotid wasn't working very well anyway, but the tumor had kind of fucked it up, so they had to remove that as well. Now, on the morning of the surgery, I go in at about 7 o'clock in the morning. I was a little bit early, 7:30 was call time. Go in, I do my initial stuff, do the urine sample, do all of that, make sure I'm not pregnant, all of that stuff, even though I said it's impossible. Did all my tests and things, did all the leaflets, all the signing. One thing I found really interesting is all of the consent forms are now digital, so it comes through to your phone, which I was not anticipating. I had to use my phone to approve all of the consent stuff for anesthesia and all of that, which was really interesting. I met with the anesthesiologist very early. He was very quick, very simple. I've gone under before, so I knew my personal experience. I don't have any allergies or any underlying conditions or anything like that. Really, I've got this and endometriosis, and those are my conditions, and I don't take any medication for either. So I'm a very easy patient, I think. So I had my surgery. I didn't have my surgery. I had my consultation with the anesthesiologist, signed away my life, and then a little while later, one of the registrars came round. There were 4 doctors that I know of in the room in total. Could have been more, I don't know. But there were 4 of them that I met with. One of them was fantastic. I mean, I appreciate all of them, but one of them, she had such great bedside manner. And she was like, yeah, it'll be a 3 to 4 hour surgery. We don't know until we get in there, but 3 to 4 hours sounds reasonable. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, that's not so bad. Just foreshadowing a little bit there. Then eventually the ENT came round. Now, I've been supposed to have an appointment with this ENT for the last 3 years that I've been waiting for this surgery. Never had an appointment with him, and he waltzes in, typical surgeon. I don't know if anyone else has had interactions with surgeons, but I grew up in the medical world, so I am fully aware of certain characteristics of surgeons, and this guy encompassed all of them. He was he came on in, was like, nice to see you again, and I was like, nice to meet you. I've never met you before. He was very much the salesman pitch. But he talked through part of the surgery, and then eventually the surgeon that I had met, the plastic surgeon, he came in with another registrar, and I got to, you know, see someone who I actually knew. And they both kind of like briefly explained the surgery. They talked about where they were going to make the cuts. They put a little arrow in this side, and then they drew some lines. I think what they ended up doing was a little different. I think when they came in, they said they would do from up around my ear back around, because to get to the saliva gland, you have to cut back behind the ear. And that was kind of their agreement that they would do. And a typical facelift, which is essentially what I got at the end of the tumor removal, is like down here and a little bit behind the ear, because they'll gather the skin, pull the skin up, and pull the skin up here as well. However, since being out, it is a little bit more extreme for reasons I will explain. So it goes down past my ear, all the way up around my ear. So basically my ear has like a cut all the way around apart from the very top, this very top part above the ear. So a pretty significant cut down there. It also, I don't know about, I think there might be a cut down here as well. And then there's a cut here. I still have my dressings on. It's 2 week post-op. I still have my dressings on. I am going to London tomorrow. And tomorrow is when they will replace the dressing. Honestly, the dressing needed to be removed a week ago. It needed to be changed out a week ago. It's a mess. Like, it's so messy. It used to have a longer dressing up here, but I've cut it because it's falling off. But yeah, the dressing is a bit... I mean, if you can see the outside of this, you can tell how messy it is underneath. The other problem is my hair. So I haven't been able to wash my hair properly. I have washed like this half of my hair just to get some done, but it is so gross. Oh, you don't want to know. Iodine, serous fluid, blood, all of that in the back of my head it's disgusting. So I'm really hoping tomorrow they remove the dressing so I can actually properly wash my hair for the first time in 2 weeks. Anyway, back to the surgery day. Had all my consultations, I go down. So we get called down. I put all my stuff away in the lockers. I get called down to the surgical suite, except, first of all, they don't know where the surgical suite is, which operation room we're going to. And secondly, they're not ready. So why they called us down, I don't know. So I sat in like this recovery room area for a while. I don't know how long it was, because obviously I had no watch, had no phone, had nothing. They asked if I wanted my phone back, but I thought I'll just sit here. I did a bit of mindfulness. I did a bit of like just positive thinking. Honestly, I wasn't really nervous about the surgery. I wasn't worried about the surgery because I felt like my time to worry and be concerned is after the surgery when it comes to the recovery. I've got no control over the surgery that happens. I got no control over how the surgeons go. I've got no control over what happens while I'm asleep. So I was very much in the mindset of I'm just letting that go, and I won't be nervous about the surgery. I will worry about things once it's over. Keeping in mind that I had been told that this was a 3 to 4 hour surgery and would be like a 48, maybe 72 hour recovery in hospital. Okay. So I'm like, fine, that's fine. Manageable. So eventually they bring me in, they hop me up on the bed and start getting ready for the anesthesia. The cannula goes in, that kind of thing. I still have bruises I have a cut still from the cannula, got a bruise up my arm. I've got bruises pretty much everywhere. This is the worst of them. I think I've got bruises all down my right hand side because I think they might have had me on my side slightly while I was getting the surgery, and so I'm quite sore. My entire body is sore, like my entire body. I cannot tell you. The reason for that is, so they're like, oh, you're gonna go to sleep and you're in good hands and all of that. I'm like, yeah, just put me to sleep. They start asking me about who I've got at home, and I was like, well, I've got my dad, but then, I also have Ku and Kai, my animals. And they're like, tell us about your animals. I'm like, I can't fucking talk about my animals because I will cry. I don't think they realized that, Ku and Kai were at the forefront of my mind at all times. It's the first time that I've been away from them overnight. and I just wanted to bawl my eyes out. I wanted to cry. I wanted to do that. So they got me on this bloody table, and I'm like, you don't want me crying right now. You want my airways open so that you can, put me under and then, do what you got to do. You don't want me to cry. Anyway, I don't really remember falling asleep. I remember her saying, I remember the gas coming in because there's a very different, it's a very different smell, taste, all of that once the gas starts coming through. Last time I got put under, they gave me the happy juice. They gave me morphine or something like that before I went under. This time it was just the gas. So I was lying there with the gas coming through, and I remember her saying, don't fall asleep too soon. And at that point, I wasn't feeling tired. Even with the gas coming through, I was like, I don't think it's working. But then about maybe 60 seconds later, I think I fell asleep. So that's when my memory cuts off, right? Then all of a sudden, I wake up, and what do you know? I am surrounded by people. I am being pushed around constantly, and I am vomiting. I apologize right now to anyone with emetophobia. You might want to skip the next couple of minutes because that is all I'm going to be talking about. So for the next, let's see, I woke up. I don't really know what time it was. I was told that I came out of surgery 10 hours later. So that would be around like 8 o'clock, I think. 8:30, 9 o'clock, I wake up, right? Maybe even 10:30, I'm not sure. But they think it was like a 10-hour surgery. So my 3 to 4 hour surgery is now a 10-hour surgery. It is dark all around. We've gone from morning time to dark. I am surrounded by so many people. And I hear people saying various things, like one of the doctors who I asked, can you call my dad when I'm done? Was saying we need to call her dad, which they didn't do, by the way, because he has an international number, so they wouldn't call it. They did have my phone. Well, I guess they couldn't get into my phone. Anyway, they didn't call my dad, so my dad has no idea. He's sleeping here. He has no idea what's going on with me, what happened. He has called up, I think around 7 p.m. that evening. He had called the hospital and managed to get through to the recovery rooms, and they said I was still under. So I do think it was like 9, 10 o'clock at night that I finally was brought out and woken up. Anyway, I start vomiting. And the nausea and vomiting does not stop. It does not stop. It keeps going. They give me all kinds of anti-nausea. They're trying to I think they thought maybe I was anxious or something, so they were trying to calm me down. I'm like, bitch, I just woke up. Like, I have no recollection. I'm like, I'm a complete mess. I'm just vomiting nonstop. The vomiting continued from that time, like 10:30 until 1:30 in the morning, until they could find an anti-nausea that worked for me. It was awful. It was awful. I mean, good thing is that I'm so soon out of surgery that I don't feel anything, so I wasn't feeling any pain from the vomiting. But it was just, I don't like throwing up. No one likes throwing up. It was horrible. It was horrible. I can't explain. It's the worst way to possibly wake up. I will say that last time I went under, I was fine when I woke up, but I had nausea a few days after the surgery. So I don't know if it's from the anesthesia or whether it was because I was under for 10 hours, and that's a long time, and that's a lot of stress to put on the body. Obviously I was intubated, so my voice is still not recovered and I'm still coughing. I think they scraped the inside of my throat and possibly my vocal cords with the intubation, which is frustrating. But what are you going to do? It was a 10-hour surgery. They had to keep me under. They had to keep me intubated for that long. But it has complicated things, because not only was I vomiting, I was then coughing. Coughing really got worse once I left the hospital, but I'll explain that. Anyway, worst possible way to wake up. So confused, trying to figure out what the fuck went on. Finally, someone told me it'd been 10 hours under, the surgery and all of that. they moved me mid-vomiting. They moved me from the immediate recovery rooms to a recovery ward where there was no one else there, except I do remember they had some really lovely music on. That's all I can remember of that recovery ward, was like the most lovely music mid like me trying to hold back my nausea. And like, I have a lot of experience with feeling sick. I get sick on airplanes and things, so I've got a lot of techniques, mindfulness, coping mechanisms, things that I do to help prevent me throwing up. And yeah, I spent a lot of that time in the recovery room listening to their lovely meditation music, trying to like hold in. But with nausea that strong, with that severe, with that kind of reaction to whatever drug they put in my system, obviously there's not much you can do to hold it off. It was so about 1:30 they were talking about transferring me because I was vomiting less, not completely stopped, but I was vomiting less at 1:30. And they were saying, okay, well, maybe we transfer her to the actual surgical recovery ward, which is where I'm supposed to be. And before they did that, they were like, one of the doctors came along and said, just try this one more drug. And they were like, well, we're at the limit of every drug that we could possibly put, every anti-nausea that we could possibly give her, we're at the limit of all of them. And she's like, just try this one more, this one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but it worked. Like all of a sudden, the nausea disappeared. Like it was so weird. It went after vomiting nonstop for so many hours. It just disappeared. And so at that point, they decided to transfer me into the ward. I went to the ward, and all of a sudden there was this like room, 6 people. I was in a ward with 6 people. It was 1:30 in the morning. I was exhausted. I was finally not nauseous. But when you're in a room with 6 people who are also recovering from surgery and also feeling miserable, sleep is not an option. So unfortunately, the 2 ladies next to me were heavy snorers. So they were snoring nonstop. I was trying to sleep, like I got in and out of sleep, but it felt like I didn't get any sleep at all. And then at 6 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., once the sun starts coming up, they come around and they do your obs and start your day. So I didn't get any sleep that first night after the surgery. I spent the next day trying to get sleep, but they did constantly wake me up, constantly. Even though I wasn't waking up for any food, like meal time would happen for everyone else, but I couldn't eat at that point in time. I was on liquid diet, and even then, like most of my fluids were coming from a saline. What they didn't tell me after the surgery until the next day was that I had lost a lot of blood, a lot of blood. So much blood that they came very close to doing a transfusion, but they decided because I was young and otherwise healthy that they would save the blood and not give me any top up. So I cannot explain to you how exhausted you feel. Like obviously the surgery itself, the 10 hours of surgery is exhausting enough on your body, but also to have lost a huge percentage of my blood, and have your body trying to convert liquids into blood for that was difficult. On top of that, the morphine wasn't really working. So I had a cannula with both fluids and morphine. Morphine was not working. So I started to feel a bit of pain. I will say it wasn't like, I've had worse pain. I've had worse pain in my life. And I said this to the pain management doctor as well. I was like, yeah, like I have endometriosis, so I'm used to extreme pain. And this was not that. It was like, I still wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't say, oh, it was fine. It was still sort of 8, 9 out of 10 pain. It's just that I had felt more acute pain. And again, because of my experiences with endometriosis, with past history of pain, I had coping mechanisms in place that helped me deal with the pain. So mindfulness and breathing and intense focus and all of that I can pull on that I was able to get through that pain. But the pain nurse was the best person in that hospital. She was the best. She was immediately like, no, morphine should be doing more than this for you, so that's not working. We're going to switch you onto oxycodone, which obviously hearing, I was a little bit like, I don't know if I want to be on oxycodone, but I think I need it. So she put me on that. We found out that I'm super, super sensitive to opioids, which doesn't really surprise me given that I don't drink, I don't do any drugs, I like generally don't do anything apart from caffeine. So if I'm sensitive to drugs, that's probably why. My body is not used to it. So she switched me over to oxycodone after a while. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 days in. And in the midst of all of this, finally called my dad the next morning with the doctor, explained what happened. The reason it took 10 hours is because the nerves were so like mutated. They were so abnormal. Some of them were 0.5 millimeter in size in places. And in order to remove the tumor, they have to separate skin, the other layers of my body, as well as the nerves. So they have to separate all of those nerves from the tumor, remove the tumor, and then plop it back in place. So for them, it was like, it was so difficult, impossible. And in fact, they didn't even get the full way they were intending to go. They got to about here, like in line with here, and then it was already too late in the evening to go any further. So they actually stopped the surgery at this point. So I still have the same amount of tumor as I did in my nose and all the way down here, which again, not hugely unexpected. I mean, it's unexpected that it would take that long, but it's not unexpected that they didn't get to this part of my face because they are coming from the outside in around a curve, which is very complicated. So they had told me before surgery that I may have to have a second op to get to go through like my laughter line down here and do a surgical insert from here to remove it. So I already didn't expect them to get to that point, but the fact that the reason they couldn't get to that point is because it took 10 hours to get there is like crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, basically it was just a really, really complicated tumor, and my blood, as soon as they opened me up, the blood did not stop flowing. For those 10 hours, I was just constantly losing blood. So it was time. They had to call it there and get rid of it. So yeah, in terms of the recovery in the hospital, let me tell you, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. If I can avoid staying in a hospital ever again, I will do that. I do think I needed to, and in fact, I was supposed to stay longer in the hospital. So initially I was told 48 to 72 hours in hospital I'd be staying. I ended up staying for 5 days. I was supposed to stay for possibly a week because of the intensity of the surgery. I struck a deal. I struck a deal with the doctors. I said, hey, look, I have my dad at home who's a doctor. He's a GP. He's here. So if anything happens, he can rush me back. He can drive me. We're 2 hours away from the hospital, but we have a car. And on the Monday after my surgery, it was my birthday. So I was like, please, can I go home on the Sunday? Can, having my dad there, can I just be safe at home and recover at home? I did not really sleep. I think I had one night where I got 6 hours of sleep, and that's the most sleep that I got the entire time I was staying in the hospital. And, honestly, a key part of recovering, healing, is sleeping. I did not get any of that. I got no sleep. It was no fault of the ladies I was with. There were 6 of us in a room in quite a tight, crowded room. And all of us were at different stages of healing. Some people were fresh out when I had been in for a few days. Some people had been in for far too long and were having friends and family over all the time, talking, watching movies together on the speaker, like that kind of stuff. Other people were incredibly sick during the night through no fault of their own, obviously. But that meant that no one else in the room could sleep. It was just not good. And, although I really, really appreciate the nurses and the doctors who were around, the nurses were very underconfident. I was constantly asked what happened to me, which as a patient, you're like, surely you have notes that tell you what I've just been through, what surgery I've had. It was just very confusing for me because I'm still dopey from all the drugs and the anesthesia, and you're asking me what surgery I've had and like what's wrong with me, and I'm like not in the capacity to tell you, but also I would hope that you would know so that you know how to manage my care. But they did not know how to manage my care. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, sorry, I thought the dog walker had come and gone. We're fine. I'm just gonna leave that in. This is gonna be completely unedited. I'm sorry, it's all rambly. Anyway, oh man, I just cannot emphasize enough that that is not the way to recover, and I really, really wish that the NHS would put in more research. Not the NHS, the government would provide the NHS with more resources to support this kind of thing, because what ended up happening was they removed my catheter. TMI, by the way. They removed my catheter on the first day that I was in, when I was still completely incoherent. At this stage, I only had one eye. Actually, for my entire hospital stay, I only had one eye because this was so swollen that I couldn't actually see. So my depth perception was terrible. And it's also quite dizzying only having one eye. Not to mention the drugs and the anesthesia and all of that I've been under. It's very disorientating. So they took out my cannula and they were immediately like, you need to walk to the toilet. And I'm like, this is the morning after the surgery. So after 10 hours of surgery, no sleep the night before, they're suddenly like, catheter out, you need to go walk to the toilet. I was the furthest bed from the toilet, and the toilet was not outside or within our room. It was down a corridor. So I sort of immediately knew this is dangerous. Like, I don't think I'm in good enough shape to make it to the toilet. So, but I had to go to the toilet. So I say, and because I'd lost so much blood, I had so much liquid going into me that I constantly needed the toilet, like constantly needed to go. So I try for the first time. I get up. The nurse is standing with me, but not offering me support. So like she'd like hold her hand like this, and I'm like, please God, like hold me, because I am gonna either like stumble into something or I'm gonna fall. Like I'm gonna fall. I knew immediately. I was like, I'm gonna fall. So we start going. We head towards the toilet, but you have to turn a corner, and the second we turn the corner, I was like, I'm gonna faint. Everything went blurry, and I blacked out. I woke up to people screaming my name on the floor. It was too soon after the surgery. It was, I had one eye, no depth perception. I was dizzy. I had not enough liquid in my system, not enough blood in my system. I was really, really unwell. And that was a serious mistake to make me walk that distance. Just really, I'm not annoyed at the nurses because they were told that I had to do that, but I do think someone should have stepped in and said, no, she's not well. That is not the only time that I fell in hospital either. So a couple of days later, it was nighttime. I was feeling better. I had walked to the toilet a couple of times after that. We actually moved rooms. And the room that we moved to, I was closest to the door, which is terrible for sleep and sound. But it meant that I was closest to the toilet, and the toilet now was right outside our door. So it was a perfect situation for me in terms of going to the loo. But there was one night where I don't know what happened. I had come off the oxycodone. That's what was happening. I was going through withdrawals. So I had the sweats. I was really itchy all over my body. The opioids had done a real job on me. I was feeling quite sick. Just this insane sweats, fever, cold, clammy kind of thing, which was making me really like disoriented. And also coming off of opioids, obviously, is a very intense thing. And that's what had kind of happened to me. But I knew that in order to go home the next day, I needed to come off the opioids. So I was like, fuck it. Like, I don't care. I can breathe through the pain. It's fine. So I was like, okay, need to go to the toilet. I've done this multiple times. Granted, I am now feeling quite ill because of the opioids, but let's go. So I get up. The nurses just remove the stuff. One of the nurses, I think she's a doctor actually. She had been there when I had collapsed the first time. And she said to me, "You don't look too good." And I was like, "I don't feel very good." But then I kept going. And this was the worst experience, maybe, just because of how vulnerable I was at the time. But I did sort of say, like, maybe I should take the commode. And she said to me, "You do what you want to do," which is not something that you should probably say to a patient who's completely out of it, because I can't make decisions at that point in time. I do think that the decision should have been made for me. Anyway, the commode, by the way, is like a chair toilet that they can bring behind the curtain next to your bed, so that you just have to transfer yourself to the commode and do the toilet rather than walking anywhere. Which is a safer option if someone's feeling quite unwell or they're unable to walk. Anyway, I am walking towards the toilet. I sit down. Second I sit down, I'm like, I'm not making it back. It's not happening. I'm not making it back to that bed. I was so dizzy, so nauseous, so sick with opioid withdrawals, not to mention, just from the surgery itself. I just knew I was not making it back. I stand at the door, open the door. The nurse is there, the nurse or doctor. Maybe she was a senior nurse, maybe. She is looking at me and I go, "I'm going to faint." And she's like, "No, you're not." And then what do you know? I fainted. This time was not as bad. I didn't black out or anything for as long. Like, I obviously don't remember ending up on the floor, so I fainted. But I was much more with it. But it did take me a moment to recover. And while I was trying to like gather myself on the floor, I was trying to breathe through and like get my steadiness back, the nurse is yelling at me. So she just starts yelling, "I told you you weren't well enough. I told you just to use the commode." Like really berating me while I was on the floor. And she's going, "Claire, Claire, Claire, look at me," and yelling at me to look at her. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, "I am looking at you," but like she was sitting on this side of me and my eye was closed. Like, I am looking at you. I can't see through this eye and you can't see that I'm looking through that eye. Anyway, it was a big old fuck fest. And I just like, I don't blame her. It was the night shift as well, so I'm sure she was exhausted. But it did frustrate me because I was like, I am the patient in this situation who is very, very unwell and has had no sleep, no rest, no nothing for the last 4 days at that point. And plus I'd passed out before. And I was just thinking, like, have some have some patience, have some kindness, maybe. I don't think I got much kindness, honestly, throughout the whole thing. Felt like every time I told them that I was in pain, because they come around, they do the obs, they do your, blood pressure, they do your heart rate, all of that. Every time they did that, they would say to me, "What's your pain measurement?" And obviously, after having this kind of surgery, and because my whole body had been affected by the surgery, my pain is quite high. So most of the time I'm saying like 7 or 8, even with the oxycodone. There were times when it was lower, but most of the time it was quite high. And they're saying to me like they felt like they got annoyed with me every time that I wasn't like improving or recovering. There was a point where I just gave up and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to tell them that it's fine because I want to go home and I feel like at least I'll get some sleep at home, I'll get some rest at home, and I'll be with my animals if I'm at home. So at some point I just stopped being truthful, and what do you know, people started being nicer to me. But it felt like truly when I was in pain and when I was suffering was when they were the least kind. And I think it's just one of those things where like there's not enough resources for them. They were clearly understaffed. They didn't have the support that they needed. The fact that none of them knew what was going on with me or what I had been through was hugely concerning. Like clearly communication is not there. It was just awful. It was just awful. Um, anyway, I had made this deal to get out on the Sunday, and the doctor was like, so long as we get you off the oxycodone, we get you off the strong, pain medication, and you can like walk around and function, we'll let you go home. So my determination from like the Friday through Saturday, Sunday was just appear well, manage the pain through mindfulness or whatever I can do what I got to do to get home. Like just get home. That's all I was thinking. I didn't care about not sleeping anymore. I was just like, just doesn't matter what's happening. You smile, you pretend that you're fine, and you get home. And I did that. So on the Sunday morning, I won't say that the sweats had gone away, but most of the itchiness and sweats had gone. Like most of them had gone. I had taken some anti-nausea overnight, which had helped. And I was like in stable enough mood after the opioid withdrawal that I could like converse and act brighter than I was. I did have a really lovely nurse on that last day. I think she had been one of the first nurses that I'd had as well, but I don't remember much of it because I was so out of it. But she was there on the last day and she was certainly very kind to me. I was still only given yogurts. Let me just tell you, this whole 5 days, by the way, that I'm not sleeping, I'm not really recovering or healing or having anything managed very well. I am also only eating yogurt. They brought me like one small portion of soup per day, but it was like tasteless soup. And then they would bring me a yogurt with every single meal, and it was the most. I'm like so sick of yogurt. Oh, I can't even think about it. It makes me want to be sick. Like yogurt at every meal was not even a different flavor of yogurt, by the way, just the same yogurt over and over again. And it would get to a point where there were just yogurt cups left all over my table because that's all there was. Also, this whole time, I haven't been able to go to my bag. I haven't been able to change clothes. I haven't. Actually, when I got home, my dad realized that I had bed sores on my back because I hadn't been like mobilized or moved or, moved around. And the ties from the dressing, the hospital gown, had actually dug into my back and scraped it raw just from lying there. So again, that's another case of like clearly they didn't have the resources to come around each patient and ensure personal hygiene and also movement. They just didn't have the resources. Like there weren't enough nurses around to do that kind of thing. So I was really sore on my back as well, like completely red raw on my back. So anyway, I am trying to like on the last day, I'm trying to get ready, like show that I'm good, but everything is difficult. Everything is hard. I've got no one to help me. No one's assisting. My dad's still back in my hometown waiting, not hometown, but back at home waiting for me to give the call so he can drive 2 hours to come and pick me up because we're still not sure if I can go home. The doctor finally comes around and he's like, okay, you're off the oxycodone, but when you go home, we don't want you to have anything more than ibuprofen and paracetamol, which was news to me. I thought I was going home with proper pain medication, But at that point, I was so desperate to go home, I was like, I don't give a fuck. So they did send me home with some tramadol, but they told me don't take it because the side effects for that drug are quite severe and honestly would be worse, probably make the situation worse. So I was told paracetamol, ibuprofen, that's all you get, which after you've been on oxycodone for severe pain for 5 days is a bit of a shock to the system, and I was a bit skeptical. I will say that since that day, I didn't end up taking any tramadol when I got home. I have only been on paracetamol and ibuprofen. There have been a couple of moments of unbearable pain, which was obviously bearable because I bared it, but a couple of moments where it was really severe pain, but I've managed it and it's been fine. It's been totally fine being on paracetamol and ibuprofen. Anyway, so I last thing they have to do is take out these stitches. They have what they call quilting stitches, which go through the skin and look like a quilt to like hold the skin together. So they removed those. That was super fucking painful. They didn't have the right tools on them, so I had to lie there for a very long time. Meanwhile, the lunch lady is trying to give me my lunch, and she's like, here you go, hold on to it. And I was like, yeah, but I was stuck on my side waiting for the surgeon to come, and she's like, here, take the food. And I'm like, food being yogurt, by the way. Yogurt in a straw with which to suck. Anyway, I'm like, okay, yep, thanks. They finally do that, and then the last thing we have to wait for is the pharmacy. The doctor gives me the okay to go. He signs off the paperwork. I call my dad, tell him to come. He starts driving 2 hours, and then the last thing was the pharmacy took forever, but luckily I told my nurse, like, my dad would be there around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and she very kindly went directly down to the pharmacy at 3 and was like, we've been waiting for hours for this. Give me the prescription, and she brought it back up for me, which was so lovely. That's what I mean about, like, at least my very last memory of the nurses was a good one. She was good. Anyway, my dad arrives, we go home, we drive home, very hot, very awful. I get home, and yes, finally at home, saw Ku and Kai, was so happy. Kai definitely missed me more than Ku did. Ku, my dog, is in love with his granddad. He's in love with my dad. He really, honestly, I don't know that he's loved another person more. He loves him so much. So he's gonna really miss him. Dad's here for another week. But I think that's the dog walker. Hold on a second. It was not, in fact, the dog walker. I'm going to wrap this up. This has been 48 minutes about talking about my surgery. I don't even know if I should upload this. This is too much rambles. Anyway, let's wrap it up. I got home. I feel so much better. It's been up and down. My energy levels are very low, but I did go for my first dog walk the other day. Yesterday we went into town. So I'm starting to be able to do things. I am an absolute wreck after having even done like 30 minutes of walking. I'm like, it's not even like my body's tired, it's my brain. My brain just goes to fog. So I'm a little bit worried about starting back work in a couple of weeks, in a week or so, because I don't know that I'm fully capable of doing it, which also brings me to like streaming and making videos. I don't know that I'll be able to do that. I mean, even talking for 48 minutes now, my throat is raw and dead, and I'm probably going to have a lie down for the next couple hours to recover from just doing this. So that just makes me think that like it might be a little bit longer before I can do gaming videos again, or like at least to the extent that I was doing them before. I've still got a bit of recovery to go. It's possible I might feel better, especially after I go to the doctors tomorrow and they change the dressings or remove the dressings. Maybe I'll feel more like a human again after that, because right now I feel like a mess. Like, just look, I just feel like a mess. But yeah, I am very glad to be home. Coming home is the best thing ever. You know, managing my pain and my sleep on my own. Very good thing is my dad had some sleeping pills. So those first couple nights at home, I took sleeping pills, and oh my God, I can see how you could get addicted to sleeping pills, honestly, more than pain medication, because being able to sleep like instantly was amazing. I've tried not to take any more. I took two nights in a row, and then I was like, if I take any more sleeping pills, I'm gonna get addicted. Like, this is not gonna stop. Um, but since then, I've only sort of so I haven't taken any more sleeping pills. My sleep is the worst part. I wake up at least a couple times a night having to refill on paracetamol. Um, but in the past couple of nights, even it's gotten a lot better. So I think that's improving too. Obviously, a good thing now is I can see out of my eye that was closed for the first 5 days or so, 6 days maybe. I can see. After the doctors tomorrow, I might find out. I've been wearing this for 2 weeks now, 24/7. I think for the next 2 weeks, I should only have to wear it when I'm like sitting around at home doing nothing. So when I go out, I should be able to remove it. Or yeah, like if I want to go for a walk with Koo, then I don't have to wear this. So that will be a lot nicer. I think, I definitely am not feeling pain like I was before. There's still pain, but not like there was before. Sometimes I feel the nerves reawakening and blood flow and things like that. I can feel that within my cheek, but it's fine. Like last night was the worst in a while, and it was over in like 30 minutes. So I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I really am. But it's going to be still. I think I anticipated that by this point I would be feeling fine. I'd be back to myself, and I wouldn't need any more rest, or I wouldn't feel like I was in pain anymore. But that's not true. And I think more realistically, it's going to take at least the next 2 weeks to get back to some level of normal capacity, and then probably even 3 months past that, which is when all of the bruising and things is supposed to go away, is 3 to 6 months. It will probably be 3 to 6 months before I actually feel 100% myself again. So, yeah, I just underestimated how major of a surgery. And honestly, as you can tell, it was much more major of a surgery than it was supposed to be anyway. So, that's my story. That's a whole fucking hour of me ranting away, talking. I apologize. Probably could have been more succinct. Um, for my own sake as well, because now I am destroyed. This is, a lot more than I anticipated, but it had to be done. It had to happen. I had to get the surgery. And I do think they've done a fantastic job. I think the difference between my old face and this face right now, even though the swelling has not gone down, like I still have swelling. Obviously, I haven't got full control over my face yet. Despite all of that, it still looks more symmetrical than it did before. So I think they've done a fantastic job. I'm sure I will have more updates in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to enjoy the last week or so with my dad. It's been so nice having him here. And like I said, Koo and Koo especially, is in love with Dad. So it's going to be really sad to see him go. I then have about a week on my own before I go back to work. Hopefully I can rest and recover then as well. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I can come back to making videos soon, but I think what I've learned in the last 2 weeks is it was a major operation. I need to slow down, chill out, and just let my body do what it's got to do, because I can't expect things to be like fixie. But it is really boring not doing anything. All I can do is watch TV. I'm finding reading to be quite difficult even. So I will be happy when I can come back to playing video games. I haven't even played video games really. Like that's how lack of concentration and focus I am. But yeah, okay, I'm going to end this here because that is an insanely long video. And I will see you guys hopefully soon with some more updates. And maybe when I get more of a sturdy voice, then I can go back to, I can do a little stream, a little taster stream, and see how we go. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for, holding out and staying on the channels and chit-chatting with me, and all of the kind comments and things that I've received in the last couple of weeks. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be back soon. But yeah, we're healing. We're healing. I'll see you soon. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.